Hello and welcome back to Warframe. My name's Todd, also known as Mage Mick, and this is of course Warframe. Last time we completed the Venus Junction, and since then something important has happened. A massive update dropped for Warframe, including the Sacrifice update, and there's been a new Prime Access that's been dropped. But overall, for the Sacrifice update, unless you've completed all the quests in Warframe, it's not important to you. Not yet, anyway. It did introduce a new quest. Let's see if we can't find it. There it is, the Sacrifice. But it requires completing the Apostasy Prologue, which can only be completed after completing, I believe, the Chains of Harrow, which is pretty much the last quest, requiring you to unlock Mott in the Void, which is way over there, but it's pretty much all the way throughout the entirety of the star map. So I'm not going to talk too much about what's going to happen, because we'll get there eventually. However, you might have noticed that our colors have changed. I've decided to update our color scheme a little bit so it looks a little bit cooler, pun intended. Aside from that, though, the one update that I can talk about that came with the Sacrifice is the sounds for the user interface have changed, plus the customization options.
A new alert has begun.
Oh boy.
It will
You
be
may
marked
see the
on
network
navigation.
is not responding thing down on the bottom every now and then. There's nothing I can really do about that. I think it's a part of the Sacrifice. There's just been a lot of influx of people coming in. But the Sacrifice added a new UI customization tab in the interface options, which allow you to change how you log in and how it looks. When you logged in, of course, after the Sacrifice update, I'm sure you noticed that the login looked differently. The backgrounds, the theme, and sounds can all be changed from here, and you can kind of see what it looks like here. A lot of the menus have changed. Not all of them have changed, so I don't believe that the UI is completely updated, at least not yet. For different backgrounds, you've got the Vitruvian, which is the new one. You've got the Legacy, not anything amazing there, and then you've got Equinox. Nothing super amazing. I personally like the Vitruvian quite a lot. Themes-wise, you've got a bunch of different colors. So you've got the Equinox theme, which is colorblind friendly. The High Contrast theme, which is another type of colorblind friendly. You get the Legacy theme. You got the Vitruvian theme, and then you can also purchase new themes with a bit of platinum. But we don't currently have any platinum, so that's going to kind of have to wait. There's some cool ones, though. The Stalker one is kind of nice, but I actually really like the Legacy theme, so I'm going to change it to that. Sounds can be changed back to the original, which that just gives you the old clicking noises, but I kind of like the new sounds, so we're going to keep those. So, aside from that, no major updates have been changed aside from adding the Sacrifice quest, which we may see some spoilers for that if we go into a game with some other people, but I'm not going to worry super much about it right now. We did finish our Taxon from last time, so we will claim him and we will check him out. He's of course our first Sentinel, so he's our first companion. Companions come in many different forms, but the main one being Sentinels. Currently, the only one we've got, of course, is Taxon, so we'll throw him on, we'll equip him. The other ones can be bought with platinum, but I wouldn't bother because it's really not super worth it. You can, of course, customize them however you want. I'm just going to throw on some random colors for now. They do come with like little sets of armor as well, same as kind of like Warframes, but that's all cosmetic stuff. Of course, cosmetics again. We'll leave him kind of as he is for now, and then we'll equip his weapon, which is the Artax. So the big thing about Taxon is he's got a little bit of health, a little bit of armor, a little bit of shields, and his weapon isn't super great, but the one thing about his weapon that is really nice, it has a automatic cold proc. So it will always proc cold with a 100% chance. Its status chance may only say 3%, but that's only 3% for other types of status. Overall, it doesn't do a lot of damage, but he has some really nice mods, which we will try and get on there if we're able to.
Covered in blood.
So the first time you select your Sentinel, you'll notice that he's got his ability, and he's also got a attack mod, which this allows him to attack. If you take this off, he will not attack anything, so don't take that off if you can avoid it. Unless you, don't want him to attack something, which is a strategy. But the big thing for his Taxon is he's got molecular conversion, which every time he hits somebody with that ability, it gives you 50 shields. Of course, that'll go up as we rank up the mod. Plus, since we've got our first Sentinel, we can actually throw on Vacuum. Now, Vacuum is a really nice mod. It allows you to collect items around you, you know, in a space. So we'll want to upgrade that mod and Molecular Conversion as we level up Taxon. He's of course got other mods like shields and health and whatnot, but this is pretty much where you want him to start off with. We'll rank him up and we'll be able to put more mods on him later on. Sentinels, of course, do have health bars, and they will die in missions if they get hit too much. There are some things that we can use to mitigate that later on, but right now we don't really have a whole lot of them. He will be a great boon for us, though, as time goes on, just because of our ability to survive. We'll go up greatly thanks to the added shields. I did want to build the Boltor, but we still don't have enough materials for that just yet, so we will probably head straight into a mission and try and clear out more of the map so we can do, you know, do more stuff. So let's go straight into, you know, the setup for the next mission. Oh, I did almost forget that you can change now. The menu up here looks a little bit differently. It's pretty much functions the exact same way, but the settings here are kind of what it shows for what we're doing. We're going to go solo in most of these missions just because it's a little bit easier for us since we're not as kitted out to go solo. I'm going to try and clear out as many of these missions on Venus as I'm able to right off the bat, and as we progress towards getting Mercury and Mars unlocked.
Eliminate all Corpus threats.
Alright, 60 Corpus, we can totally eliminate them. So as you can see with Taxon above us, he's going to attack enemies that are within his radius, and he's going to use Molecular Conversion, which will help us stay alive. Of course, that cold proc really does help slow down. You wouldn't think it would slow down a gun, but in Warframe it does actually slow down the fire rate of weapons, such as guns and other things, so it's extremely useful early on. One thing I don't know if I mentioned, but when using Volt's second ability, your melee attacks actually speed up as well, which for certain weapons can be extremely beneficial. But we're going to try and rush through this. The next few episodes will probably just be focusing on making sure that we actually get as many of these missions cleared out as possible, and that should be your main focus pretty much throughout the game until you've cleared out the star map. After the star map is cleared, focusing on quests is pretty much the main focus. But you can do quests in between, you know, as you're clearing out the star map, so we'll kind of show about them as well. Right now, we're just going to cleave through some Corpus and be on our merry way. Let's see. Got that one. Let's try and get some resources. I need to speed it up. We can always get these resources later if we need them. One of the things that you'll kind of notice later on is that most people don't bother with storage containers pretty much at all, unless it's special types of storage containers, which tend to be more useful than others. There are certain resources in the game which are quite rare. Especially early on, one of the hardest ones we'll be trying to get would be plastids. But later on in the game, plastids are far easier to get. But if you ever see a neural sensor container or a neurode container or anything of that nature, such as organ cell containers, those are all rare resources, considered like mostly rare resources, and super useful to have those in our possession. We could probably speed up these quests actually if we went public, so in the next episode I might just do that so we can kind of not be held up by some of these. Especially in things like Exterminate, you do actually have a huge benefit of having multiple people, which can greatly speed up missions. Especially if those people have much better weapons than you. Killing becomes much easier. But we're doing alright. Getting through them. Later on, these exterminates get kind of crazy, and it can be upwards of 200 plus enemies that you have to kill. But 60 is fairly easy for us right now. Just hack and slash our way through. We haven't even set off the alarm, which might actually be beneficial. But I'm not going to super worry about it, just trying to get through these guys as quick as possible. It should be noted, one thing that you can definitely kind of base your weapon choices off of, because we're going after the bolter right away. You could go instead for, oh, there's the alarm. Something else based on what kind of weapons you're looking at. Another great choice early on is the Vectis, which is a 10-0 sniper rifle. In the early parts of the game, it won't be super helpful. In later parts of the game, the Vectis is massively helpful, and we'll probably build it maybe after we get maybe a new melee weapon and maybe another secondary. But we're going to focus on that bolter right away, just because that will be a good weapon to have.
Now get to extraction.
When choosing your weapons, though, the one thing I did want to bring up is you can use some great resources that the Warframe community has built up, such as the Warframe wiki has a weapon comparison page, which is like a big old spreadsheet to like show off all the different types of weapons. I may put I'll put a link in the description towards that, so if you want to check it out, you can go do that. It doesn't show off any of the special abilities of certain weapons. And we can now see the Taxon does level up just like every other thing in the game, your frames and your weapons and whatnot. 30 is of course the max. But back to the weapons, you can see with the weapon comparison on Warframe Wiki that it like shows off all the different stats of weapons, such as status chance, crit chance, the amount of damage it does. So you can get a very good gauge of what weapons are good, what weapons aren't. And to show off that Vectis, I will just show it here real quick. So this is the Vectis. You can get it at Mastery Rank 2, and it's a very, very good weapon later on. Right now it's not super useful just because the fire rate is not great, but it does a lot of damage. Another great weapon early on, if we can get it, would be the Tigris. I don't know what Mastery Rank that one is nowadays. Oh, it's 7, so that's way out of our reach right now. Oh, burp. Let's see. What are some other good early game weapons? The Heck is a great early game weapon, if we can get our hands on that. But we only have so many weapon slots, so I'm not going to try and get too many superfluous weapons, at least not right off the bat. It does help us to kind of have a strategy when we're planning out our weapons because of our limited inventory space. It also helps to plan out what kind of Warframes you're going to get. I plan on getting one other Warframe, and then the last slot will be for a cycling Warframe.
Were you visualizing
depending on what
battle?
type of a
Me too.
thing I'm looking at, or like which ones I need to level up. Truthfully, I highly suggest, if you're able to, you can also purchase a starter pack, which comes with a little bit of platinum, and I'll leave a link to that as well and below. It's like a $20 pack that if you're just starting the game, it really helps to start out to have a little bit of extra platinum, so you can buy some more slots for weapons and warframes, or even just cosmetics. I might throw $20 down just so I can purchase it for this account, so we can get some new colors at the very least, maybe. This is of course the amount of weapon slots we have. It's not a massive amount, and with a new inventory it's a little bit disorienting for me anyway. But effectively we will only be able to carry this amount of weapons before we start having to get rid of weapons because we can't carry them anymore. We'll probably get rid of things like the kunai and the Paris later on, just because they're not super great. But you'll probably want to hold on to the heat sword that you got from the promo code free sword, just because it does have a catalyst installed in it already, which is not easy to find. Alright, let's just head on to the next mission. So we can either do spy, or we can do defense, or we can do survival. Okay, so I'm probably going to go with... Let's start with, let's just head towards the Mercury Junction. So we're going to have to defeat Jackal. Okay, so let's go with defense. I'm not a big fan of spy. There are a lot of good rewards you can get from spy, but later on in the game, it's pretty much critical that you have a Warframe that can use invisibility, which I'm not a big fan
Our
of.
position has been compromised. Defend the cargo until reinforcements arrive.
Let's see. Alright, so we're gonna go 5 waves and then head out of here. So, with the whole update for the sacrifice dropping and things like that, and all the changes that happened in Warframe, it's comes back to the old statement that I made where if you leave for a couple months, a lot of things are going to change by the time you come back. So if you ever get tired of Warframe, don't be afraid to just take a break for a bit, go play another game, come back to it in some time, and you'll get to experience some new stuff that's dropped or released. You never know what'll happen. There are a lot of news websites you can check out and a lot of other things for resources, for updates on new information and leaks and things like that. There's lots of other YouTubers who, talk about what's coming out for Warframe. One of the ones that I truly enjoy watching is MC Gamer CC. He's very informative, and I really like his way of handling new content. He just kind of talks about it in a frame where if he likes playing with it, he'll tell you so much, and if he doesn't, he'll tell you the same. If you wanted a comedy channel, though, there's other people like Quite Shallow. Shy is a very interesting YouTuber. And she does, videos that are a little bit awkward, but interesting nonetheless about weapons and warframes. Let's see, we're just plugging away at these guys. Man, not a whole lot you can do with not any upgrades, really. Just gotta make sure that we're keeping this thing alive. Oh, there's the network not responding again. I think that might have to do with just the sheer amount of people that are online right now after the update, but it's really hard to say. This is only like a day or so after the update. I'm sure there's tons of information about the update and the content inside of it if you wanted to look it up, but honestly, the Warframe community is pretty good about not really trying to do spoilers and things like that. You really need to look up information about the quest so you can complete it. It's understandable, but it's an experience, especially with some of the quests that we'll see later on, such as the War Within and other ones like that. They're pretty cool. Just seeing them for yourself. So I'm not really trying to spoil anything or reveal anything about the new update that I haven't seen already in this series. And by the time we get to the sacrifice, it'll be at the very least a couple, maybe a month or two before we even get there, which that's being generous, of course. Considering we only get about 2 updates a week at this rate, it's going to take us a while. I am going to rush through this as fast as possible, and if these missions in between the junctions kind of get boring, I may decide to just drop them all together, but we'll kind of try and progress as quickly as we're able to. After all, some of these missions later on are worth seeing, like some of the Arcwing missions and some of the more difficult missions and some of the later planets really are worth seeing because they're not easy to deal with. And first time around, I definitely died a couple times on some of the later planets. And there's some bosses as well later on that we'll run into, which are kind of hard to understand how to even fight them if you're not knowledgeable about it. You can of course look up how to find or do pretty much anything on a Warframe wiki, but if you actually want to see somebody do it, that's what we're doing this series for. It might just be worth it in the end. After all, we're kind of going at the very bare minimum here. I'm trying to not use any majorly big promos or content you couldn't get without like spending any money. Which maybe I won't spend that $20, maybe I will in the beginning time. We'll see. Depends on whether or not we really run out of space for our Warframes, which Warframe slots are really quite hard to come by unless you can get the platinum for it. Or maybe I'll show off a little bit later on of some trading and trying to get some platinum through selling some parts that we can get some relics. Because the big thing about Warframe is that you can trade with other players and get platinum without ever paying for it. But early on that's quite difficult as we don't really have access to very many relics or void fissures. And truthfully the most valuable void fissures tend to be the ones at much higher level. Though there are some relics early on that can be very profitable if you can get the correct drop from them. I think the only drop we got previously was the Cernos Prime blueprint though, and I don't believe that that's worth very much. A good place to look up how much an item would be worth in, say, a riff or something of that nature would be Warframe Market. If you've never checked it out, it is a worthwhile place to go to check prices on things. I'll probably put a link for that as well in the description. Lots and lots of links in the description.
Extraction is ready.
We're gonna head out,
Unless you
and
can
that'll
handle
be
more of
pretty
the
much what
enemy.
we do for now. Next time around we'll do some more missions. We'll probably join some public games. I'd really like to not get any spoilers for the sacrifice, but we're probably going to run across them regardless. Maybe some other frames as well that we're going to run across. But I'll put those 3 links in the description, and we will talk more about some other stuff. Maybe getting into what other types of things when it comes to damage that we're doing. Because damage right now is not great. It takes us a while to kill stuff. And clearing missions is not very fast. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about that next time. But until then, goodbye.